If I can't help you make a buying decision about the M1 Mac after watching this video, then I'm not sure I can really help. Although hit me up in the comments section below because maybe we can work something out. Let's go. What is going on, you beautiful humans? Welcome back to the channel. And yes, today what I want to do is take all of the testing that I've been doing, which I'm continuing to do that testing, but I want to round things out and continue to provide you with a summary about the M1 Mac and at least some of my recommendations, taking a pause based on your particular budget or whatever hardware that you may have laying around, and actually just clear the air a little bit and give you a little bit of context. Here's the thing, folks. I realize that Apple did not invent this concept. They did not invent this idea of the way this chip works. I totally get it. Just like with Apple Pay and many other innovations that have come along the way. But here's the thing, Apple, they're actually really good at getting and tugging at the heartstrings and the purse strings and the wallet of the consumer. And really what it comes down to is that they're awesome at marketing. I mean, their marketing campaigns are second to none. And people are really paying attention. But the thing is that the developers are now really starting to pay attention to what's happening. So what we're seeing right now, I mean, it is amazing to see how bright the future really is, especially here in 2020 when all of us are getting just one big viral hug. Now, what I can tell you and really just admit, full transparency here, is that we're the ones testing these machines and you're going to be the ones testing these machines as well. So I can honestly tell you that the primary reasons why I made this investment, we'll get into that, but that's the thing. Like, I do have two other machines. I have an iPad Air 4 and I also have my MacBook Pro with eGPU. So I do have a backup. And do they work? Yep. The thing is, obviously, I have this YouTube channel where I review tech and I make recommendations and offer up tutorials and everything in between. And full transparency again, and just full honesty, this is a business expense. The M1 is a business expense. That's just truth. I take chances in my business to help you make a buying decision. And that being said, I will actually get the next iteration of these M1s or whatever they are, and I will test those too. And I hope for those of you that maybe wait on the M1, that you are currently using what you have right now and you're fine with, I hope that when I test those, that I'll be able to say, you know what? This is still a fantastic machine and there are some significant improvements. However, on the flip side of that, for those of you that have invested in M1 or are thinking about M1 right now, I really hope to be able to come back to you to say, guess what? You still have a very capable machine and I think you're good. You're good with the M1. Is this machine so efficient that I have to pick my jaw up off the floor every time I use it? Yep. But are people experiencing a few bugs? Depends. Right now, I realize that I am experimenting with this machine, and I understand that in some use cases, some folks are having some issues, but I'm in a very narrow lane of use case right now, and so far things have been fine. However, I know about some of the Bluetooth issues that folks are experiencing, and that can be partly due to Big Sur, because I know people that have upgraded to Big Sur on their Intel-based machines that are having issues, but some of this may also be related to the M1 chip. We think. But there are some solutions out there. I personally have not experienced those, but there are some creators out there that have found some resolution to that. So that is very helpful. Now, of course, the limited ports, that could be an issue for some of you out there. You know, and I'm not gonna mention it, I'm not gonna say the word, but you could add a hub to your setup if you need more ports. There's also been some discussions in my creator spheres where there are some individuals out there that have literally bricked their Macs. They weren't intending to do it, but certain things that they were trying or pushing or trying to wipe the hard drive and reinstall the operating system. And the only solution, because the Mac was bricked, was to bring it back to Apple. And for some of you, that might not be an option, because what if you got a built to order Mac that you had been waiting weeks or maybe up to a month for? These kinds of headaches are what most people would likely not sign up for. However, I think we have a good understanding to know that when we see a lot of this negativity, a lot of these negative reviews and experiences, that these are fringe cases. This is not what is common, but these are things that people are experiencing. But I think generally speaking, most are having success with these machines. Now, knowing that I have the backup tech and investing in this machine, that it has exponentially increased my productivity. I mean, here's the thing. In my workflow, being able to save time, because I've talked about buying time as a construct, which you can't really do. But if I can get more time back to create the things that I want to create, do the things that I want to do, and this machine cuts down on that, on my workflow, then I'm all for it. Now, as I said to someone in the comments, because I love hanging out in the comments, but there are a couple of people that just continue to not really want to finish our conversation, thinking that I'm some sort of fanboy spewing this whole thing, spewing this whole gospel about recommending tech that is way too expensive and why would you invest in it? However, here's the thing, like, especially now, I think I can comfortably say, even coming in at the base price for the MacBook Air, even MacBook Pro, but especially the Mac Mini, and I think we've leaped around a corner now when it comes to that Apple tax and thinking that these machines are expensive, but for what they can do, honestly, I think they're reasonably priced. But the point is that I'm trying to recommend a tool that is best for you. And one of the examples that I gave to this individual, again, the individual, some of us, we've had conversations, we've finished. And so, I don't mean any disrespect, but there are some folks that, I tried to just put out there, looking at a carpenter, a roofer, someone who is building, and they'll tell you that investing in a good hammer, that not all hammers are the same just because it's driving a nail into the wood, like that it all works the same and that it holds up the same. And I don't really want to make an oversimplification here, but it just brings me to the point here of talking about what you currently have as your current tool. Now, if you have a very capable PC, if you have an iMac, if you've got the MacBook Pro 16-inch, I'm not telling you to just get rid of those machines and move over to M1. That is not what I'm actually saying. But here's the thing, like, if you're upset about that MacBook Pro, that 16-inch MacBook Pro that sounds like a jet engine, like firing up every time you're rendering a video, I would just encourage you to put on your most comfortable travel and airplane clothes, sit back, relax, and enjoy the trip, because for most of us, we're not getting an opportunity to travel these days. Now, I had a conversation with another person who had reached out to me, and he had invested in the last iMac just recently, and was really contemplating about whether he should send it back because the return window was quickly closing, and whether he should seriously think about taking that back and then investing in the M1. And he and I went back and forth and just kind of thinking about this. And obviously the iMac is a very capable machine, but for him and for a lot of you out there, if you want to bump up the specs, whether that be the RAM or the hard drive, and then also add in a monitor and some other peripherals, his whole thing was I'm gonna have to wait like a month. And he and I were kind of talking about having to wait a month, and that's like a month of lost time, lost revenue, lost opportunities. And within that month, he could potentially be able to get access to an opportunity that could change his whole next year. And so then he could even be able to afford an M1 on top of his current iMac, or maybe even invest in the next iteration of Apple Silicon. And of course, speaking of the pipeline, because it's all about, should you buy right now or should you wait for the next iteration? And like I said, if you have a very capable tool right now, I totally get it for you just to kind of wait. But if you are constantly thinking about what is next, what is going to be faster, what is going to be efficient, here's the thing. If you need the tool right now, if you need the tool to get the things done that you need to get done, and especially for those of you that make revenue with these machines, which actually you do not have to be a creator only to make money with these machines, if it gets you from point A to point B or wherever you need to be, then make that investment now. And of course, for the creators, if scrubbing through 8K raw footage and cutting and editing that, working with complex Logic Pro X files, which, oh my gosh, like the capability there. And just one quick tip for those of you that are using Logic Pro with third-party plugins, make sure that you right click on the app and that you're opening the app with Rosetta so that your third-party plugins work. Just a quick tip. And of course, I'm not trying to share just some straight up vanilla benchmarks around here. I'm talking about real world use case. And I have actually put this machine through some paces. So if you're someone who is streaming, doing some word processing, doing a little bit of browsing and whatnot, and you're a student, of course these machines will be fine as long as you do the research and look to make sure that any app or software that you need, especially for school or for work, that it will be compatible. And of course, Rosetta is doing a fantastic job for those applications that are not like optimized for M1, so not optimized for silicon. And so I will give props there that Apple and the developers have done a wonderful job, but just double check that it would be compatible. And of course, sure, I'd love a little extra IO and an SD card slot on the back of that Mac Mini. However, you know, I mentioned the hub, and speaking of which, I do have, so that ViewSonic behind me, I've done videos on that. I've got a hub connected to that, and really it's just connected through the Thunderbolt cable that's going into the Mac Mini. I just have one cable and I have everything set up and everything works fine. So that's my particular use case, but for some of you, that could be a deal breaker. Although again, just expand and get a hub, and there are very good options that I can certainly link down below. But here's the thing, my friends. Here is what I want you to take away from this. Really look at your finances. Look at your current situation, your current workflow, your current hardware. I did a video where I mentioned using an external SSD to save a little bit of money, because I honestly do think that upgrading to 16 gigs of RAM, I know that there are benchmarks out there. I know that there are users out there doing videos on the base models and they're doing fine. But what I can also share with you is that I'm in touch with a lot of creators out there that have gotten the beach ball on the base models. It hasn't hung up like for too long. It hasn't been too big of an issue, but it is happening. So I'm just saying, like, if you're multitasking on some heavy apps, if you're video editing and then that's rendering and then you're moving over to Photoshop, working on your thumbnail, or you're doing some surfing or some research or typing some things up, it's going to start utilizing that RAM. And I understand that we have to look at these chipsets very differently, but as we know, as Apple starts upgrading their operating system and with like every update, something seems to be a little bit off in how it's utilizing the RAM. Will it get more efficient? It's possible. However, based on history, with the iPhones especially, you notice that the RAM has creeped up in that hardware over the last couple of years. So I'm just saying, if you really are looking at your finances and you want to future-proof a little bit further, then that's certainly an area that I would, you know, recommend that you look at increasing that RAM over the SSD, because you can get the external drives and they work like wonders. But at the end of the day, what you're gonna have to do is assess your own situation and see if you can really take a chance on these Gen 1 machines. And I understand that after this video and what's happening out here, and we're doing all of this research and all of this testing, you're gonna continue to go down the rabbit hole, and that's okay. But eventually you're gonna have to surface. You're gonna have to come back up to us and make an educated decision. But here's the thing. Hit me up with any questions that you may have. Hit me up here in the comment section below. I'm also hanging out on Twitter. I love hanging out on Twitter, so let's actually get into it. I'd love to talk with you, see what I can do to help. Go do those things that matter. Keep rocking those faces. I really appreciate your time and attention on this one. You go do the things, and I'll catch you right back here on the next one.